So, this week we're going to be talking about poaching and illegal wildlife trade. But before I get into this, I know we had a little bit of a discussion last week. We kind of talked about what we could do to help save our Earth from climate change and global temperatures rising. So, do you guys want to share some things that you guys did over this week or try to do or maybe researched a little bit on that you thought would be cool and you want to share? Because I'm kind of curious to see what you guys did.
What I did, I started plugging stuff like we didn't use,
Hmm.
so we don't waste energy.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh, good job. Yes, that's a wonderful way for us to stop climate change. I love that. Anybody else have something cool that they did? It could be anything because everything's helping the earth. So, no. Okay, let's just go ahead and start our lesson then. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about poaching and illegal wildlife trade. Do you guys know what poaching is, or have you heard of something like poaching or illegal wildlife trade? Do you guys know what that is? Okay, it's cool if you guys don't. A really good example I can give you is, have you guys ever seen the movie Rio, the bird with the birds? Have you guys ever seen that before?
Yes.
Yes, have you guys seen that? Or Tarzan? In those movies, you can see that people come in and they capture all these wildlife animals. So that's basically what poaching and illegal wildlife trade is. So they catch all these animals and they usually sell them to markets as pets, or they use them for stuff such as traditional medicine or for other luxury items, which is not good at all. So we're going to be talking about that today. Okay, so here are a few objectives of what we're going to be talking about today. So the first one is we're going to talk about poaching. We're going to explain what poaching is. You may have heard of it, but you probably don't know a lot about it. We're going to understand the harms of wildlife trade. So why is it harmful for us to take wildlife from the wild and use it to trade for stuff? Why is it harmful? And three, we're going to identify ways to avoid illegal trades. We're going to talk about what some people are doing right now to help these animals and other wildlife things stay safe and make sure that none of this is happening. Let's talk about poaching first. Okay, so poaching targets animals for things that they have. So one of the most common ones are for ivory, for fur, or for the pet trade. So ivory, such as rhinos and elephants, their horns and tusks contain something called ivory. And ivory is really precious, especially in countries like Asia and Africa. These two continents, they really prioritize this ivory. It is very valuable. They use it for a lot of things such as traditional medicine, for furniture, for jewelry. So it is very, very much needed. A lot of people want it, but that is one of the things that they hunt for. Another thing is fur. So all of the cool big cats that we have, like tigers, lions, cheetahs, leopards, they have really cool patterns on their fur, and this is very valuable. So a lot of people want it for their coats, for rugs, for all sorts of things. So that's also another one. The third one that's really common is the pet trade. So you've probably seen videos of people with like really cool pets that you would have never thought you could have, like lemurs, like monkeys, like parrots. Some of them are legal. They are usually found in rescue sanctuaries, or people have a license to take care of that animal because it's either hurt or it was born in captivity, so it's not allowed to go back in the wild. But some of those animals are actually taken illegally from, rainforests, from jungles and stuff. They're not born in like captivity. So captivity is meaning like in the zoo or at a sanctuary. They're born in the wild. And what happens is a lot of the local people, in order to make money, they will go out into these forests, these wildlife spaces, and they'll capture these animals and sell them to people as pets because a lot of people want these cool pets. Because I mean, it's pretty cool, right? Having like a pet lion or a pet monkey, that's pretty awesome. But it's actually not really good if you take it from the wild. This is illegal. This is illegal capturing of animals. So this is not good. That's one of the ways that poaching can happen. But another one is actually killing the animal. As we talked about, some of these animals are very valuable for their things that they have on them, like their fur, their ivory, all sorts of things that these animals have that are very valuable. People want them. So a lot of the time, they're actually killed for these items. Although there are some better regulations going on, there's laws and national parks being set up for these animals. It's still in high demand. A lot of people still want these things. So it is really hard to regulate whether people are doing it illegally or legally. So this is where black markets come in. So in order for people to sell all of this stuff or to trade all of these animals, they do it from the black market, which is an illegal marketplace where people do it illegally under laws and regulations and stuff. It is definitely not good because it's basically like a criminal operation. It is not good. They're smuggling animals across the borders and they're selling them all over the place or hunting animals when they shouldn't be hunting them. Because we know a lot of these animals are actually critically endangered. So there's not a lot of them left. There's probably a few hundred of them left in the wild. So you're not supposed to be killing them for fun and stuff. But a lot of people do. And that's basically what poaching is. You can either be killing them, hunting them, or trading these animals. So why are these animals targeted? So we kind of talked about ivory over here, like this tusk over here. So elephants are one of the biggest targets because of their tusks. Their tusks are very, very valuable. In a lot of cultures, it is for good luck. It is a prized possession, and it's supposed to resemble like wealth and prosperity. It's a really good item that a lot of people want. So they do kill elephants, but also rhinoceros. So these two animals are being targeted for their ivory. And although there are some sanctuaries out there for elephants and for rhinos, a lot of people still hunt them illegally. And that's not good at all because we know that these two animals are critically endangered. Furs and skins. You've probably seen some furs and stuff. Most of it is fake, but when it is real, a lot of people do hunt these animals for their furs, so like cheetahs, like tigers, they have really cool prints. So a lot of people want those prints and they use it for luxury clothing. And that is definitely not good. It could also be used for rugs, for belts, for coats. These things create very high priced luxury goods that rich people want to purchase for, society, for standards and stuff. Over here, this is not a fur or skin, but it is also their feathers. A lot of birds are hunted for their feathers. Think about this blue-throated macaw I have over here. They have really pretty feathers, and a lot of people will catch them, hunt them for their furs because it's a prized possession. But more commonly for birds such as macaws and parrots, they're actually captured for the wildlife trade. A lot of people capture them for pets. They're very popular pets. So like the movie Rio, they were capturing Rio's family and stuff because they want them because they're worth a lot of money. A single parrot is worth thousands of dollars, so they can make lots and lots of money off of one parrot. And the last one is body parts. I don't know if you guys know what this animal is, but it's called a pangolin. A pangolin lives in Asia and Africa. These two places they have pangolin. Pangolins are really cool. They kind of like an armadillo. They have these really cool shiny like shells on the outside. But these shells are actually really possessed. In a lot of countries, the shells are used for traditional medicines and stuff. So a lot of people will hunt and kill the pangolin for it. So people want it because they believe that their body parts contain healing powers and stuff, even though there's no actual proof of it. So, because of this information, it's often misled, and people will continue to keep capturing these animals because they believe that they have these magical powers and stuff. So how does this actually impact all of the animals in our ecosystem? So one, poaching actually reduces species numbers. So the more animals we hunt, the less we have in the wild. Kind of makes sense, right? And because you have less of one animal, let's say we have a zebra here. What if I'm poaching zebras? I'm killing all these zebras. It actually threatens our ecosystem because think about it. If there are no zebras, then the grass will start growing like crazy. And if there's no zebras, what are the lions or big cats going to eat? They don't have any food left. So the lions are going to starve to death and the grass is going to overgrown. And all the prey animals that go below the zebra, like small rats and stuff, they will go crazy because there's no more predators and stuff in that middle section. So removing one animal from the ecosystem is really harmful, as we kind of talked about a few weeks back. Even though it's like a small thing, even if it's a mosquito, if you remove anything from the ecosystem, it can cause the whole thing to kind of shift, become unbalanced, and it could become disastrous. It can also lose keystone species. We kind of talked about this a few weeks ago. So keystone species, they are there because they're very important for the ecosystem. Without them, it can be very dangerous. Right here, there's an elephant. I put a little elephant emoji. Elephants are actually a keystone species because elephants, um, they do a lot of things besides just, eating and like roaming around the plains. They actually can help build natural roads because they're such big animals. Their poop is very helpful for a lot of bugs who use them as protection to lay eggs on. They're also actually really good for making roads. So elephants, their tusks are very powerful, so they can actually move tree trunks and create roads for different animals to pass through. So they are super duper important for our ecosystem. And without them, the whole entire ecosystem can become super duper unbalanced. So when the keystone so just remember when a keystone species goes gone, it means that the whole entire thing is going to change and it can become very unbalanced. So disrupt food chains, which we've talked about. We remove one person from the food chain, then everyone's going to get all messed up and stuff, and it's become really hard for people to come get food and stuff. But it can also disrupt migration. So we kind of talked about migration a few weeks back, but migration, so a lot of animals need to migrate depending on the season. So like birds need to migrate whether it's winter or summertime. But if you disrupt this food chain, it can actually, move around their food sources. So they will actually end up migrating to different places earlier or later or in different directions. And it just overall impacts how they travel from one place to the next, and it's not good for the, the ecosystem. The last one we're going to talk about is reduce population. We talked about it. The more animals we kill, the less we have in the wild. Kind of makes sense, but it actually reduces genetic diversity. So think about it. If you have, let's say, 1,000 cheetahs in the wild, that's awesome. You have a lot of diversity going on. But let's say somebody wants to go and hunt all of these cheetahs for their furs. What if we end up with only 20 cheetahs? That actually means we reduce genetic diversity because we only have 20 cheetahs left, and these 20 cheetahs can only breed amongst these 20 cheetahs. So that means that if they were to have babies, all of their genes would be very similar because there's only 20 of them. So there's actually a study going on right now. They're actually trying to help some of these animals that are actually facing this reduced population. So some animals include hyenas, lions, cheetahs. These animals are actually facing reduced population, and scientists actually have to track their genetic diversity to make sure that there's not a lot of interbreeding and there's not just the same genes that are going on. Because think about it, if a dangerous virus were to go by and everybody in that community had that gene, that means everyone would die. But if there was a big population with lots and lots and lots of genes, that means that some people who don't have that gene that's harmful from the virus will actually survive. So it's important that we have lots and lots of genetic diversity in our ecosystem in order to ensure that these animals live on. So yes, we kind of talked about it, the science, fewer genetic diversity, making the populations more vulnerable. It's not good. So the more genetic diversity we have, the more healthy populations we can have, and this can help them resist, diseases and changes and stuff. And I kind of already talked a lot about this, but like poaching, if we poach a lot of animals, they will actually start interbreeding, and all of those genes are going to become more and more similar to each other. And it's actually horrible because it can disrupt a lot of stuff. Like as we talked about, diseases are one of the big ones. Another harmful thing is poaching. When people poach for animals, they want the animals that are fully grown, the ones that have all the cool features that they have. So think about like this leopard over here. When the leopard's small, it's too small for them to hunt and actually gain any fur off of it. But if they're to hunt a large adult cheetah or leopard, they would have all the fur that they could have from that one cheetah or leopard. So it's really important that we actually stop poaching because poaching actually kills a lot of the adults. And if we don't have any adults, that means we don't have any breeding partners going on. So that means that we can't have any new babies and stuff to live on for that population. So if we have fewer females to fewer males or aging population, this can also just imbalance the whole ecosystem and cause the population to become unstable and actually make it hard for them to live on. So scientists call this population bottleneck. So bottlenecking is when a population drops suddenly and they lose all sorts of genetic variety. So think about like a soda bottle. You have that little narrow part at the top. If all the genes are just to shrink and go down, that's not good because in the long term, survival is going to be very hard for them because as we talked about, if a disease were to hit this population and everyone goes, gone, that's not good. That means that that population would not live on. But if we have more genetic diversity, more genes, more animals in that ecosystem, then we can ensure that some of them will live on and keep going to reproduce more. So that's why we should know the science about how it controls population dynamics. So you guys may be wondering, what is actually going on to help stop, species and stop this poaching behavior? So there's actually a lot of things that are going on. There's many laws, as we talked about. There's national parks, there's sanctuaries, lots of things are opening up because people want to help solve this problem. But the problem is that enforcing this is actually really hard. So a lot of the places where poaching happen are actually in poorer countries and they're a little bit more unstable, so they have less government and less, laws that can actually control what's going on. So it's hard for them to enforce these laws, even though they want to. A lot of people are still able to do it illegally because there's not a lot of people watching them and stuff. So this is why it's kind of hard for us to, actually enforce these laws. Even though we want to help these animals, it's really hard for us to do that. So thankfully, there are a lot of cool things that are happening right now. One of the first ones is new technology. So drones and cameras, a lot of national parks and sanctuaries, they're installing cameras and they have drones flying all day to make sure that there's nobody on the land that's killing an animal or catching an animal for this wildlife trade or for poaching. So that's one of the ways that we're using, new cameras and stuff to actually solve this problem. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but a lot of scientists are now tracking their animals. They will put GPS trackers on them so they can track where these animals are going. And this helps ensures their safety because scientists can figure out if these animals are being hunted, if they're under, threats, if they are being hunted. It helps scientists figure out what's actually going on in the area. And then we talked about it, protected zones. So like national parks, there's a lot of national parks. A lot of the poaching happens in the continent of Africa. So a lot of these animals are actually being poached, but there are a lot of protected zones like national parks. And in these national parks, they have rangers that go out all day and they, track what's going on. They watch the animals. They make sure no one's entering these national parks in order to capture these animals. But this is also kind of dangerous because sometimes, they're putting themselves in danger to stop these poachers. So they need to make sure that the people who are there, because some of the people who go there to hunt the animals, they will fight back with rangers and stuff. So it's important that the people that are in those areas are usually military trained or armed trained, so they're safe and they know how to protect themselves if anything were to happen. But of course, many countries still, struggle with this because it's a really hard topic. It's a really hard thing to kind of enforce because of how big of a problem it is. And also, it's really hard to enforce all of these laws. Even though there are like lots of laws on paper and stuff, there's not a lot of funding for it. There's not a lot of rangers that are willing to do it, and the pay is really low. So it's a really risky job, but also it doesn't provide them with a lot of money. But also political corruption. A lot of these governments, as we talked about, aren't very strong. There's a lot of scandals and stuff. So it's not the best place for them to start enforcing all of this. But it is in the back of their minds. They do want to help them, but it is really hard for them to, protect these species currently. But that's okay. Even if those places aren't able to do it, there are different ways that we can help. So one of them is conservation. So conservation groups like the WWF, which you guys probably seen, it's that little panda logo, or the traffic. So they raise awareness and support anti-poaching laws. So a lot of these places, they will actually promote this in zoos and stuff. So the next time you go to the zoo, you might see some cool signs. They might kind of explain what poaching or wildlife trade is. So all these organizations, they're trying to raise awareness in these more developed countries and try to encourage people to, be more aware about this problem. And they're trying to stop it in the best way that they can. The traffic is actually a global watchdog for wildlife trade. So they monitor shipping routes, online sales, and poaching trends. So how do you think these animals are getting from places to places? Well, airplanes, trains, boats. A lot of them, people will sneak them onto these transportations. And so that's what traffic is doing. Traffic is actually trying to make sure that none of these animals are being smuggled across borders and being shipped to different places for pets, for medicine, for all this horrible stuff. So that's one way that people are helping right now. There's also something called the International Anti-Poaching Foundation, also known as the IAPF. They actually train rangers and especially from local communities. So this one is a really good method because they're trying to, enforce the local people to, come join in and support this mission and help the animals that live around them. They provide lots of funding, they provide protection, education, and job training. And it's wonderful program for people to join in and help protect the animals around them. The last one I have on here is something called Wild Aid. They're a little bit different. They focus more on reducing the demand. So they have a very famous slogan. It's basically saying, when the buying stops, the killing can too. So they're trying to conserve these animals in a different way. They're trying to stop the demand. So most of these conservation efforts I have on here, they're trying to stop poaching itself. But these people are trying to stop people from buying or from wanting more of it because they believe that if people can, stop wanting to buy these things, then the killings can stop too. So they're on TV, they have websites, they have social medias, billboards, they're trying to stop people from purchasing these items. So by not purchasing these items, they can actually help save these animals because then there's less demand and then less people want to kill these animals because they're not getting money from it. Let's talk about what you can do. This is definitely one of the most important things from our lesson. So, one, avoid products made from endangered animals. So, no ivory. So, ivory, anything. It can be from chopsticks, it can be from tables, it can be from necklaces. Don't buy anything with ivory that is not, you know, purchased or found sustainably, which most of the times is not. Some of the times, some of the rare times, it could be fossils, it could be an animal that was, the ivory was taken from in a good way. There is a good way to take ivory from these animals, but pretty much 99% of the time, it is not sustainable. It is not good. Most of the time, the animal was killed for their item. So we don't want to support any of that. Turtle shells. Turtle shells seem really cool. You might see them at the beach stores and stuff, but it's also not good because if you were to take a turtle shell, what would happen to the turtle? They would have to kill it, right? Because the turtle's shell is actually its backbone, so it's not good. And feathers. Lots of feathers are actually plucked from illegally, so we don't want to buy any of this stuff. You can buy fake things. You can buy fake all of this, but just don't support any of the real ones because remember, 99% of the time, it is from a real animal, and we don't want to be killing our animals. Be cautious with exotic pets. You might want exotic pets. I have an exotic pet. I have a lizard. I have a pet lizard. But if we are to purchase exotic animals, we have to make sure that our animals are actually coming from sources that are legal. So I have my lizard because she was purchased from a reptile store and she is not from the wild. She was born in captivity. She's a domesticated breed, so she's not able to go out in the wild. So if I were to put her in the wild right now, she'd probably get eaten. So that is fine. That's a good way to get an animal that's exotic. But I'm talking about ways that people are getting kangaroos or they're getting lemurs or they're getting zebras, but these animals are stolen from the wild. That's not good at all. The only way for an animal to be kept in captivity, especially in the United States, is if you have a license for it, if you're a sanctuary and you're trying to rehabilitate that animal, if you're a zoo, most of the time the animals in the zoos you have here in the United States, all the animals here are born in captivity. So that means that they were not born in the wild, but born in the US. And that's okay because they can't go back in the wild because they've lived with humans their whole lives. But That's why we wanna make sure we're not supporting any of these illegal animal trades. Even if that animal is so cute and you think that is such a cute animal, I really want that as a pet. Think about it. That animal was probably stolen from its home, and you probably don't want to be taken from your home too. So we want to make sure we're not supporting that. Check ingredients that are linked to wildlife exploitation. So medicine, beauty products, a lot of that stuff, some of it contains like exotic animals inside. So you want to make sure you check your ingredients so you're not supporting any of that. And lastly, one of the coolest ways you can support them is supporting ethical brands and businesses. A lot of the brands out there today, they actually, if you buy something from them, they'll donate a portion of their purchases to help these animals, to help these places, help these conservation groups. So that's one of the ways you can help out. So we're going to do one discussion because we are running a little bit out of time, but I'm actually kind of curious. So which animal do you feel connected to or want to protect? So any animal that you like. I mean, I'll share one for myself. So my favorite animal is a sloth. Sloths are honestly one of the most illegally taken animals because they're really cute. They make not good pets, but people believe they do. So a lot of people actually go up in the trees and they catch them because they're slow, they're easy to catch. So I really want to protect sloths. So in order to do that, I do a lot of volunteering with conservation groups to help solve this problem and help support the mission. So I want to hear what you guys like. What is an animal that you guys really like your favorite animal, and what do you want to do to protect that animal? It could be any animal.
Um, I want to protect oxalotls, one of my favorite animals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what to protect it? Have like every time you go on the beach, there's like an officer there, like looking,
Mm-hmm.
see if you get
Yes.
oxalotls or anything. And I heard there's only like 50 something in the news. They told
Yes.
us.
You are so right. Yes, axolotls are actually they're very, very endangered in the wild. And even though some people had them as pets, that's okay. But in the wild, there's not a lot left. So I love that you feel connected to an animal that's actually being harmed by this. That's awesome. I love that. Anybody else have an animal that they like? It could be any animal. Anybody else want to go? It's okay if you don't go. It's okay. No? Okay. But yeah, any animal, it can be from a small animal to a big animal to a really endangered animal to a really common animal. All animals are being affected by this. So whatever animal you choose, just think about it. You can do some research, think about ways that you can do to help them. Support conservation groups, go to the zoo. A lot of the times that you go to the zoo, your ticket purchase is actually used to help animals in the wild. Support ethical brands, you know, learn a lot, ask questions, do some research, watch some videos, see what's going on with these animals in real life, because a lot of the times you actually don't know. Okay, so let's talk about your homework for this week. So here, our take action for this week is you're gonna pick one product you own or you have seen, like a bracelet, a lotion, a souvenir, anything you have. Research its environmental impact or links to poaching. So think about it. If you have your favorite lotion and stuff, see if it's actually connected to this wildlife trade or to poaching. And if it is, you're gonna write one habit you'll change to help wildlife. If it's not, still write something that you want to do to help change wildlife. You don't have to write it down, you can just think about it. It can be anything. You can use the one that you used last week, but expand on it further. But just make sure that we're helping our animals and stuff and just, take action. All right, that's all for me today. We are actually at the end. So, do you guys have any last minute questions? Because I know that this is our second to last class. So, do you guys have any questions? No, no questions. You guys are good.
No.
Okay, so I can give you guys a sneak peek on what we're going to talk about next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about urban wildlife and human coexistence. So, we're going to be talking about the animals that live around us, which is pretty cool. So, this one's going to be a really cool lesson on animals that live around us. So, you guys can kind of see how you guys can help your own backyard friends and stuff. Okay, if not, that is it for me today. I hope you guys have a really good week. And yeah, thank you for coming. Bye.